ever hear of the tragedy of Darth Gosling, the La La Land?
What dance?
It's a Sith legend. Darth Ken was a Dark Lord of Barbieland, and he was Knuff, if you think about it.
It was Knuff.
He was Knuff, and we think it was a tremendous job, but also a terrible movie, if you're asking Trump.
Obi-Wan Kenough.
Obi-Wan Kenoff. I love it. Welcome back to the Star Wars Guys podcast. As always, we're your host, Mike.
Hello there.
Myself, Nate. Hello there. And you know him well, Uncle.
I can't do the pirate anymore.
We
Skeleton
lost it.
crew.
We had
Hey,
but it be
hello
close
there.
enough. Oh,
who
there's
lives in
a
a
pineapple. I think we did that bit last week, and it was good.
Skeleton
right?
Crew is over.
It is.
It's
For
over.
now. For now. Hopefully we'll get more Skeleton Crew Season 2 eventually. We'll see. But that's right. We're excited to be back on the podcast. We're excited to discuss some breaking news, some topics that have really started coming out by all the credible sources.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This past
big
week,
stuff.
Ryan Gosling, Star Wars movie, and reports of Natalie Portman's possible return to Star Wars in Ahsoka Season 2. We're going to talk about them both and break them down. What do you guys got?
Yeah, so I sent this link. I sent the headline, I think, to our little group chat.
Yeah.
I guess almost two days ago now. I think day before yesterday. In the afternoon, all of a sudden it popped up on my social media feed. Variety article, Hollywood Reporter. I can't remember which one was first, but the headline that I had screenshot here: "The Force is with Ryan Gosling." This is Variety. The Barbie and La La Land star is in negotiations to star in an untitled Star Wars movie to be directed by Deadpool and Wolverine filmmaker Sean Levy.
Yay.
Which there's a lot of angles to this story that I want to get into this morning. We'll get into the Gosling of it. We'll get into
You know, that's a baby goose, by the way.
a Gosling.
A female goose.
Nice.
Oh.
What's a gander? Isn't that a thing?
Goose and gander. The Gosling, I guess, is the baby goose. The gander would be the female goose. The Gosling is a baby goose.
Well, since you mention it, let's take a gander at this story. But yeah, there's a lot of different angles here. A lot of stuff we want to talk about, obviously. So Ryan Gosling potentially joining Star Wars, headlining a movie. Big story. Sean Levy, still no official Lucasfilm report, but I guess at this point it's they're just never going to address it.
They don't need to.
I think they're just going to be like, well, we're done doing announcements on maybe finally at Celebration in Japan. They'll have him. They'll say, here's our 3 directors, and it'll be like a game show. Here's the 3 directors from that we announced at last Celebration, and then it's Filoni and it's Charmin Obaid-Chinoy and it's Mangold, and then they said, all right, but which one of them will make it? And then like one of them steps forward and back, and Charmin Obaid-Chinoy falls through a trap door, and jeez. Let's have Stephen Knight out here. Oh, and then he's swooped away, and that's and then Favreau comes out because he's like, actually doing a movie
Pretty
on
locked
Clunky
in.
Beans curtains,
Clunky
and
Beans
then
curtains.
they get Sean Levy finally out there. But a lot we want to talk about overall. Just we can start this in any number of directions because we can also talk about what does this mean in the story. They get into a little bit of whether or not that means. They suggest in here that if this deal is finalized, which it seems very likely that it will be, it could very likely be the next Star Wars movie after Mandalorian and Grogu. So there's a lot of release date type of stuff that we can get into. But overall reaction when you just see the headline, where's your mind go first?
My first thought was, is that real? And then
Variety and Hollywood Reporter is
after
as legit as it gets for
after seeing a lot of the reports, I started thinking like this is then I really was like that'd be new for Star Wars. They usually
as far as an A-list actor.
Yeah, they usually lean on, some actors that are more, up and coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then Star Wars kind of makes their career.
Yeah.
This is the complete opposite. Ryan Gosling could not be at a higher peak in his career than he has been in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing movies every year, it seems like, and some are just massive hits. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm more curious, I think, to hear more about what the story would be and who his character would be. 'Cause they're probably pulling some inspiration from Blade Runner and seeing him in that, and has similar tones. So, yeah, I'm excited really just to hear more about it than anything.
Uncle?
Yeah.
Overall initial thoughts, and we'll dive into each of the specific kind of angles
It was cool. It was cool. I like Ryan Gosling. I was thinking back to the last big star was probably Liam Neeson. It's probably the big
for the
last
the films for
Yeah,
sure.
true.
big one, like for the movies. So, and he was pretty high back then. I don't know if he was in bigger movies than Ryan Gosling is now. Like,
Yeah.
some of the biggest. I'm excited to see what happens. Again, we've talked about this. I'm a story guy, so I'm really curious about how the story plays out and where it fits in.
Yeah.
But I think if you get an A-list actor and a director who is producer who's at the peak of what they do, I'm excited that they're going to create something really exciting. I think it'll be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I am really excited about it. Just focusing on the Gosling element of it first. Because I was thinking the same thing. Star Wars has prided itself over the years of sometimes a supporting, like a Qui-Gon or an Obi-Wan out for Alec Guinness and Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
You have sometimes an established. Now, Alec Guinness, it was even a little bit more different. It was like, we need some well-known actor attached
to
to
give
this,
it credibility.
to give it some
Otherwise
credibility, because everyone's like, what is, especially when it's like, we don't even know what this is. I mean, them on set filming it, we're like, what is this? We don't know what this
Alex
is.
Guinness
kind of
is
movie,
here,
kid.
so it's got to be okay.
And if you read some of the report, and what's funny is there's hilarious articles and stuff about, like, till the day Alec Guinness died, I think he still was like, I don't know what that silly movie was about. Like, he literally was like, I don't know. It wasn't like, oh, I get it now. Like, he was kind of like, oh, that silly space movie I did. Yeah, it was like he had that kind of a feeling about it.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford has obviously had his. There's been people who have gone on to become massive stars. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger career than Harrison Ford, but he wasn't well known at the time at all.
Right.
You have, obviously the people that we think of as big name. Most of these actors, as far as these big, like of the core of the prequels, the core of the sequels, the core of the originals, almost all of them. And now they've gone down different routes. Where like Mark Hamill was obviously in a lot of other movies, but he also became like a mega voice actor, and like got a bunch of opportunities, and to this day is obviously super famous still as a result of Luke Skywalker and other things. Obviously his role as Joker for a long time. In the current recent films, they definitely still cast mostly unknowns or up and coming actors that have been at, like Oscar Isaac had been in some stuff more than Daisy Ridley and John Boyega had.
That guy.
Daisy Ridley hadn't been in
but
any.
Oscar Isaac now is way bigger than Oscar because of the Star Wars bump of it all. Daisy Ridley was literally
First
an
movie.
unknown. She had done like a couple of TV spots, and that was it. I remember when she was cast. It was a funny thing that like passed around the internet was like one headshot of her. Like, who is? It's like, oh, it's this girl, and it was like just a still of her. Like, oh, I don't know who she is, but great. They see something there.
Must be.
Boyega's been in a lot of stuff since then. Adam Driver
has blown up.
was in
he was in
a comedy series, Girls, which I've never seen it, but I knew that he was in like that type of a show.
Yeah,
he'd been in some small stuff. Now he's getting nominated for Oscars, and he's like, I mean, I think it was Scorsese was like, he is one of the defining actors of this generation, or like of this time. Like, he thinks he's like as good as it gets. And so it's interesting. So I was thinking about the whole. This is interesting that it is different, because I went to the Liam Neeson of it all too. Gosling is probably, actually, I would say almost definitively a bigger star than Liam Neeson. I mean, Liam Neeson, Schindler's List, he was a well-known actor. Gosling is like the A-list, like also the charming, like I mean, like closer to a Brad Pitt of it all. Of
Yeah,
like
right.
he is the guy. He is the anything.
I mean, you could
he's
argue
the
he's
star.
one of
Liam Neeson. You could
the
argue Liam
faces
Neeson's
of Hollywood. He's one of the faces of Hollywood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
you
Ryan
could actually
Gosling.
argue Liam Neeson has starred in more roles in the later half of his career with all the action movies and
That's
Tyrion
right.
and all that
True.
stuff. Even though he's obviously Schindler's List nominated or
Right.
Academy Award stuff.
Huge.
So I was thinking about this might be an interesting kind of flip on its head that maybe is the kind of exciting shot in the arm that that I think the Star Wars film side of things maybe needs. There's a lot of times I like to think of like, oh, I like Star Wars the way it is. Let's not mess around with what's worked. But also, the industry is way different now, and I like Ryan Gosling a lot. So thinking, oh, maybe to kind of get people, it was 10 years ago. It was a guaranteed basis. Star Wars movie comes out, makes $1 billion.
Yeah.
Star Wars movie comes out until
To get people.
I mean, until Solo,
Yeah.
even there wasn't even a Star Wars movie that had like mixed reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Even like I mean, it was hit. I mean, even The Last Jedi mixed from the fan, but critically 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's
right.
like it felt like bulletproof for a while. This feels kind of like, okay, if we're finally if Star Wars has been taking its time, and we know we've gone into the history of this director removed from this project, this writer, and a very muddy history the last few years with the film side of stuff. Them taking their time and it coming out and what they come together with is, okay, we signed the biggest name. I mean, I'm trying to think of who is a more famous Hollywood actor nowadays than Ryan Gosling. There's others on that level, but I'm trying to think of like, is there a more, I mean, like Timothy Chalamet today as a young actor is in a bunch of stuff, but I would still, if you asked people of my parents' age or older, I think a lot of them know Ryan Gosling more than Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, this is about as big as it gets. Other than like, okay, we literally get Brad Pitt and he's famous because he's been famous for a long time. But Brad Pitt's also not as famous probably as far as doing as many things today as Ryan Gosling is today. Where you're like, Gosling just sang at the Oscars, doing Barbie. He did La La Land. He's done action stuff. He's done comedy stuff. And so I like that they could literally, any tone that this movie goes with, he kind of fits the role, kind of no matter where it goes. But it's just exciting to me to see a big name actor want to be in Star Wars at this point.
True.
Like, I like that. Oh, I'm glad that there was a time when I feel like probably any actor would kill to be in Star Wars. And I don't like the fact that because of some of the fan reception, it makes us even think like, oh man, is Star Wars lessened because of that? Like I understand why filmmakers are turned off by doing it because they feel like they'd be handcuffed in some situations. But I hope that actors still feel like, man, I would kill to be in a Star Wars movie. And someone like him going, Ryan Gosling has never done a franchise, which is really interesting because he's done is about as big as movies as it gets. And there's some people who do like tons of franchise movies. You're like, Gosling's never done a franchise.
Yeah.
He's never done a play the same role multiple times. Who knows? This might just be a one-off movie, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's never been a part of a bigger story like that. So I'm super excited about it. I think it could be exciting to sell tickets. I think the combo of him and Sean Levy, which we'll get into in a second, I think is exciting because I think that Sean Levy knows how to tell a good story. You're going through Stranger Things right now. He's executive producer.
Yep.
He's directed a ton of those episodes. He's very much one of the driving forces behind that entire like shepherding of that series. Obviously, just made Disney $1.5 billion with Deadpool and Wolverine. And it feels like, the timing of this just makes sense that this project would be coming up soon. But the exciting thing of Gosling being a part of it is like, whoa, there might be an announcement that someone else is going to be a part of it too. And this might be just kind of a different kind of Star Wars movie that we're excited about.
Could be. And this is supposed to be a one-off, right?
It's supposed to be a one-off. But if it makes $1 billion, it could
so is episode 4.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
they were like, yeah, make the first one.
Yeah.
And then maybe so he split it all up. Said, I make one. If I get to make another one, I will. But It was called Star Wars. It wasn't called Episode 4.
Yeah.
It's called Star Wars. So it's supposed to be one movie, and then it landed. So
exactly.
Iron Man.
Know what it'd be.
I mean, they had
there's no way Favreau was like, I'll probably make my next 20 movies.
Yeah,
for Disney.
this will go on for 20 years.
Yeah.
So if it goes well, then there'll be a lot to do.
Right.
I think it'll be cool. Barbie was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like you didn't. The thing about success, though, I don't know why it is. People, once something gets too successful, they want to cut it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You start out like everybody starts out as the rebels. I tell my kids, everybody starts as a rebel. So Amazon was a rebel, Apple was the rebels.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, IBM was the rebels.
Yeah.
And then you get successful, and now you're not. The Yankees were the rebels at one time.
Yeah.
You get too successful. So I worry about like James Cameron. Like, are people just going to get to the point where like, this guy's too good? Let's just
he's
trash
3 of the
his
top
movies.
4 highest grossing films of all time. Don't give him another one.
So having hot people at the top of the game now come in, it almost feels like it's giving an insider credibility.
Yeah.
That people aren't because you hear stories like J.J. Abrams like it's a big deal to take this movie, or the director is getting beat up, Rian Johnson getting beat to death, and so to see that they want to do it, and even the people on the shows taking a beating on the TV shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for them to step up and say, I want to do this again, feels like it makes it's cool because it feels like people want to be a part of it.
Yeah, it
and
does.
it kind of could be contagious.
It does. I mean, I was watching the stuff with Jude Law, even talking about Skeleton Crew, and they said, what moment were you like most excited for leading up to you being in Star Wars? Yeah. He's like, I've always wanted to be in Star Wars, but he said, I couldn't wait for the moment I did this. He said, I've waited my whole life to do that.
Yeah.
He said, I've waited my whole life to go like this on screen.
That's amazing.
And he's like, it's the coolest thing.
Real quick, Jude Law is a great point. Because Jude Law, on the TV side, they did break from that mold. And I remember thinking there was some stories about, like, Jude Law is in a Star Wars show. Is that going to be distracting? Like, the idea of the Star Wars thing is that if we had originally,
does
it was
it
like,
pull
if
you
we
out
have
of it?
two, if George Clooney is in a Star Wars movie, am I just going to see George Clooney the whole
That's
time?
right.
Or am I going to buy into the story? And Jude Law couldn't have done better.
Yeah.
He crushed it.
You also you have. I think there's also a reminder that I need sometimes is that, you don't get to that level of a Gosling or a Jude Law
if you can't buy into the story,
or a Bynes or a Hope.
Hope.
If you don't have serious acting chops.
Yeah,
like,
right.
There's a reason Jude Law is a mega movie star.
They get paid to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And
they
they're
get,
good
they
at
get
being other
paid
people.
to make you buy into the story.
And I will argue that if Bill Burr comes on and plays as Bill Burr in Star Wars, and I'm okay with it. I mean, the whole time I saw Bill Burr,
right.
But I was fine. Now, a Star Wars movie's a little different. I think Jack Black was pushing it. Like, it was pushing it
Jack
for me.
Black and Lizzo,
Just because also it felt like now I will say, to Jack Black's defense, if he was actually like a main character of a whole series and we got to have a character arc with him and stuff, totally I could buy into him playing a specific character in Star Wars. He's not like too big that I couldn't. It was more of the surprise of, all right, I wonder where this episode's going. And then, what's up, dude? Skidoosh. And I'm like, okay, I was not ready for this. I was not prepared for this.
And
not ready for that.
And
Darth in the chat says, What's interesting is that Gosling has been avoiding big franchises like MCU and DC. The fact that he wants to do Star Wars is intriguing. Maybe it's because of Sean Levy. Maybe the story is that good.
I think Sean Levy is I mean, he's not on the level of like as far as like his accomplishments, recognition of like obviously a Nolan or a Spielberg or a
He
Cameron.
reminds me of like a James Gunn. He's got guys that
James Gunn's a good idea.
Like James Gunn's got Chris Pratt. Like he's got these guys that
he's one of these people that come in with a very specific vision.
Yeah.
And have James Gunn's a great one. Going into the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I would never in a million years have thought. Well, first of all, I didn't even know what Guardians of the Galaxy was.
I had no. I remember thinking they're making a comedy Marvel movie.
But the way the sensibility
it changed the MCU moving forward.
It did.
The sensibility that those guys have as a filmmaker of the comedy with. I mean, use Deadpool and Wolverine as an example. That movie's one of the funniest movies I've seen in years. And also, there's multiple moments throughout that movie that I'm literally brought, and there's tears in my eyes because they know how to do. They know how to do emotion. They know how to tell a good story.
Right.
I like that John. I mean, to be honest, I'm just as excited from this headline of the Sean Levy aspect of it. Good. Well, I mean, we've speculated on this podcast. Sean Levy has been talking about a Star Wars movie that Lucasfilm has never acknowledged. But he keeps talking about it.
How he's writing.
So I'm like, one, I love a filmmaker who actually enthusiastically like, yeah, I can't wait to do a Star Wars movie, because there's a lot of them now that are like, I've been kind of warned off. Yeah, I would have, but they wouldn't let me do my thing. Sean Levy's like, every time he's behind it, he's in front of a camera. He's like, thanks for asking about Deadpool, and then they ask him about Star Wars. He's like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm working on the script. I'm excited. The only thing I can say is that, and like, he seems super jazzed to be in Star Wars.
Yeah.
This is exciting because it's like, oh, his thing seems like it's really going to happen. And it's going to happen maybe a lot sooner than we were. I think we speculated on a recent podcast when we were asking, I think it was maybe predictions for the upcoming slate of Star Wars films. And we did a whole thing of,
when I predicted Gosling would be in.
When you predicted Gosling would be in
the next one.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Can we roll that? Go ahead and
What's interesting is they announced that Margot Robbie is also in it. It's just
those two are
just Barbie.
Wow.
I was gonna say we had a whole speculating with the writers changing and the Rey movie release date getting pulled. We had said, like, do we think that the Mangled movie would be next? Do we think? And I remember at the time, I didn't have a lot of specifics as far as why I said it, but I had said one of the things I thought seemed like it had some momentum just based on hearing Sean Levy talk about it more was I had said I think that
Sean Levy's
in the next few years, Sean Levy's movie is going to happen.
It was when we did our predictions.
It was when we did our predictions, and I said I think Sean Levy's movie is going to happen. Not because Lucasfilm's talked about it. It's the opposite. Some of the stuff Lucasfilm's announced, I've actually been like, well, I don't know. We'll see.
It's because Sean Levy's talking
about it. They've asked Mangold. They had Mangold go out on stage, and Mangold has even since said, like, I've been working on the script for, I still got to write this script. And we're like, that was 2 years ago. They announced, like, did they not talk to about it? So there's some of those preemptive, like, maybe prematurely announcing things. But the exciting thing about Sean Levy was, it's always felt like he's like basically like, yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I can tell you that I've been working on it. And it feels like one of these things that's like the opposite of kind of announce a director, now let's figure out the story. He's like,
I'm going to make it happen.
I'm trying to figure out this story because I want mine to happen.
Yeah.
So it feels like he's enthusiastically been working on it. And this is exciting that in the story it said that potentially, if this deal goes through, which it seems it's close to being finalized here. That's why they reported it. That said potentially cameras rolling this fall for his movie. Like the minute start filming is very exciting.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love all the announcements and even specifics of like Daisy Ridley comes out on stage, and I'm super excited still for a Rey movie. And I hope that whatever they're doing to take the time and reroute that they come up with the best story that suits Daisy Ridley's character, because I really love Rey. I like the fact that it feels like, oh, we actually have something rolling now, though, that like the Mando movie is going to come out, and then we're going to come out with a bang, hot, like a hot director who's also done not like a one-hit wonder director who's like, oh, he's an up-and-coming director, he had a big movie. It's like, no, he's done a number of things, and each of these things now have captured the attention of audiences, and now also are box officely doing really well. So I'm excited that it feels like that actually has some real momentum. That's gonna be coming out.
I'm looking forward to, and that'll probably happen soon. The videos going around of Gosling getting questions now on the carpet. So
I can't brag. That's the fun.
Like, I want to hear.
Are you a Jedi? Are you a smuggler? What's the role? Are you a bounty hunter?
He goes straight into
what's your costume like?
What do you want? What do you want?
I wanna hear what he is able to say and the things that he is able to discuss when he starts getting these questions, because they're coming.
Just give me a remake of Crazy Stupid Love. That's one of my favorite Ryan Gosling movies ever. Him and Steve Carell.
Yeah, it's so good.
So funny. Yeah, it's that does make me excited. It makes me think about and again, I kind of hope they go back a little bit. We talked about this a couple podcasts ago. It's hard because social media has changed so many things in the past cast. But I do miss a little bit of that era I miss The Force Awakens table read picture comes out.
Right.
And we're like, whoa, it would be so exciting if, in the fall, the first picture just comes up of the table read of it's Gosling and Sean Levy, and then you're like, what? Who's that?
Wait.
Like, I didn't know he was in it. I didn't, and they like, I mean, I'm sure they'll have announced the cast by then, but just getting it's in production, not just in production as an idea, but we're seeing them. The first on-set pictures of. Now, I don't want any spoilers, but here's Ryan Gosling in Pinewood Studios holding a cup of coffee, talking to Sean Levy, and you're like, oh man, they're doing a Star Wars movie. Like to me, that's gonna be exciting. But
Paul in the chat too, when we were talking about what type of character, like what would he say?
Yeah.
First off, he said, "Hi guys, what's going on? Welcome.
Morning.
Thanks for tuning in."
Thanks,
he
Paul.
said everyone is saying Jedi/Sith, but he honestly looks like a Cassian Andor type of character.
So I mean, again, the Blade Runner,
can see it,
the
the
Blade Runner,
Yeah, that was Blade Runner. Yeah.
Yeah, the Blade Runner
Yeah.
of it
But he can
all
do anything.
feels like that's the thing though. He can do a Han Solo-y Poe type of like a charming or he could do. I mean, he's done some roles that are a little more dark or a little more serious too, or he's done some that are more overtly comedic. Like I like that they can.
Yeah,
he's an actor that they can.
Yeah,
he's
he can do a
not
lot of
like
stuff.
Drive.
He's
He's just gonna be a getaway pilot.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's they're doing heists and he's just the getaway
He's
pilot.
the driver.
Like, put it this way, another connection to Sean Levy, Ryan Reynolds. At this point, when I see Ryan Reynolds, I kind of only think of even though he was an actor for long, I think of the comedic Deadpool style of Ryan Reynolds snark, because that's like
that's him.
That's him
That's
in interviews. That's him in
Mint
Gosling.
commercials.
There's not a
Mint mobile commercials.
It's the same thing,
right?
And I love it. Gosling is much more of a like. When I think of
Chameleon.
Gosling, there's not one role that I think
no,
of.
I go to
That's
Mickey
true.
Mouse Club, but that's just me.
Exactly. You go to Mickey Mouse Club.
I go to Remember the Titans
with
clean jersey. Never saw him.
Justin,
Back in the
and they're
day.
He's literally a lifelong
Brittany.
performer.
I know.
That's a fun
Yeah.
thing
I
too.
know
When you
Okay, let me ask you a big philosophical question. Because this may happen at some point. Are there certain things about Star Wars that are unchangeable? In other words, do we get at some point a rated R Star Wars movie? Do they have to? Do they need to cross over into other kind of forms?
Like what
Do we-
Marvel's done?
Do we need to get a straight up comedic kind of movie?
yeah.
Do we
Yeah.
need to do a Thor Ragnarok
It's
kind of
tough.
thing,
Thor
or
Ragnarok.
Guardian style Star Wars? And are we going to sit well with that? Because it fits within a certain genre, but they're trying to create new avenues. They're trying to bring in new people.
And I'm sure
And
Guardians felt like new like that when it first hit.
Of course.
MCU,
Because we were thinking, how's this going to work?
I remember seeing the trailer. I was literally like, they're making a comedy like
Mhm.
Chris Pratt, who's
Right.
Parks and Rec. Like, there's what is happening? They're making. I was like,
I
I don't know
think
about that.
Star
And I
Wars
saw it, and I
has-
was like, this is my favorite movie.
I'm curious if you think it'll ever.
I think Star Wars has tried to push those boundaries a little bit.
a little
Yeah.
bit,
with,
yeah.
Andor had some language.
I was gonna say with Andor,
Yeah.
and I mean, and Tony Gilroy has
True.
said. Tony Gilroy tried to make it even further.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
he talked about. I mean, they've said the Marva scene. Like I think they cut the F word out of it. Like
Yeah.
that was the thing in the
Yeah.
script, and Disney was like, like please, like reel it in. But you could feel even without that far of language in it, you could feel that was the tone of that show. Of like,
Yes.
let's make. I mean, even
This is gritty.
even with there's some early scenes in that show where like Bix comes in with Cassian, and I'm thinking at first like, is this going to be like a romance scene that like
Right.
a
Yeah.
more explicit
Yeah.
scene that I'm not ready for in Star Wars? Like, is that
It did insinuate
and-
some things.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely more of that.
Right.
And then there's there's, but what's interesting is there's always been this little dynamic of there's that, and then there's Jar Jar going, oh, Mr. It's a girl, and it's like as slapsticky, ridiculous as possible,
right?
But as far as an actual tone, it does feel like they are. I think they have been exploring. Like I know the stories have come out that Lord and Miller were trying to do a very comedic Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
And to the point where they were literally comparing it to Ace Ventura is what all of the they were removed. Now I feel bad for them. There were such creative differences. They were removed, and they said, "Okay, we'll go on and win an Academy Award with the Spider-Verse movies." And so they ended.
And I appreciate I appreciate an artist saying that's okay. It's just not what we do.
Yeah,
we're gonna do our thing. Find what you do.
Yeah,
and we'll go off and
I
do.
Like the idea of doing that. So, and again. In fairness to them, in fairness to Kathleen Kennedy, we don't know. We weren't on set. We don't know the specifics of it. It might not even be the idea overall that didn't work. It might have been some of the plot and
more
details
to
and stuff. They're like, you're trying. I mean, sometimes we're not against the idea, and then we get on the ground and you're trying it, and we're looking at the dailies and we think, oh man, this isn't working. And then it's like we can, because of budget reasons, we can only let this go for so long before we have to kind of reel it in or change things or get Opie to come in and direct.
Yeah. Paul,
here's what I do.
Yeah, Paul.
I need help. I get Opie.
That's what I do.
Opie. Paul said, "I don't think there will ever be a rated R Star Wars movie, and I don't think we need one. If you look at Rogue One or Andor, there are a lot of mature, darker scenes, but it still had typical Star Wars stuff."
Yeah,
I think that's a good point.
I think that they will lean into whether they ever go rated R. I don't know. I kind of tend to think that they won't, because I think that at its core.
See, Deadpool changed the rules, though.
That's true. I mean,
up until that point, there had never been a massive rated R hit.
Yeah,
that's true.
Now there is,
because they thought that it would immediately undercut your audience.
Yeah. Everything was PG-13 because that's where the money was.
Yeah. Even some
rules
PG-13 that would push the R elements of
they
it.
They would push to PG-13.
Yes.
Because that's where the money was.
They know, yeah.
So I used to think never, but I don't really want it to be.
I think it's likely that it will happen eventually.
That's what I mean.
I think it will happen eventually. I don't know if it'll be soon.
Because George would never have allowed that.
No.
And I wouldn't really want that.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't really want that.
I'm saying as if...
You're just saying as a business,
I hope
do you think that... you're saying as a business, do you think that they try it?
Yeah.
I think they're... I do think you're right that...
If the next one...
Star Wars
we'll see how the next one goes.
Star Wars is unique, though, in a sense that Marvel does live within the realm of, like, Earth. Like,
that's right.
It is our world, essentially, but made new.
Yeah.
Star Wars exists just totally separate. Because I remember even when Andor had language, there were some criticisms of Star Wars has their own foul language.
They use their own words.
They use their own words. They make up words, which was their way of getting away with. Oh, yeah, there's foul language, but not really, because you don't know what that is. Just some random word.
That's right.
Like McClunky. What is that? I mean,
that's right.
It's like they make up these. They make these. Yeah, they make up words. So because of that, it almost feels like if they lean into like the more like English, like curse words or whatever, that it almost takes away from what they've already established in Star Wars with the language thing. So
that's been
if they lean into the Andor, because they've done it now.
They have.
But if they lean into that and avoid kind of the made up, Dank Farrik, these types of things.
The grittiest, closest to the edge Star Wars event has been the most critically acclaimed so far.
Yeah,
it's true.
I'm just looking at the box
the
office,
data.
the signs.
Do we know?
I don't
do we
want
know if
to,
it's been the most viewed?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't know either.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't know. And again, also I don't know.
And it is hard.
Into movie. Like,
I was gonna say it is hard without it being a movie. Like if they if they tried that with a movie, and then they're like, this was
look at the entertainment. Like Apple TV Plus, everything is TV mature.
Yeah,
everything is TV mature.
Everything is.
I don't want it to go that way, but
it is. Yeah, that's where a lot of
as a worry.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good point.
It does feel like the industry as a whole has moved toward that.
Yeah.
Like you're saying. So, yeah, I mean, I hope not.
Toe the line, boys.
But.
Yeah. I think
and
also
girls, keep it the way it is.
The point that, or the fact that, because again, I don't really. It's hard to predict how they'll use Disney Plus with Star Wars moving forward.
Yeah.
As far as original new content and what they're gonna do there.
Yep.
'Cause I was gonna say, if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would say it's much more likely that they try something like that on Disney Plus for like a show.
Oh yeah.
And they do like a limited.
Yeah.
For the reason is because it can come out and then if
they
it's a
can
miss,
take it away.
if it's a miss, it's like we tried it, that's it. Where if it's a movie and you're only coming out with one Star Wars movie every few years, and you announce the next Star Wars movie is not to take your children to, there might immediately be some sort of from a marketing standpoint. Marvel comes out with their movies, but they also come out with another one in 6 months.
Also
with another one, and like if this one's not for you, like if Deadpool misses. Which it didn't. It hit bigger than anyone could have possibly imagined.
Right.
Deadpool's also unique because
have
the
next
character
one
and
the
stories
that
were
way.
already established before it became Disney.
That's right.
So they had a success in the first Deadpool. They had a success in the second Deadpool before
Literally
Disney bought it.
Yeah.
So Disney was handed, an established. I mean, it could have been trash, but with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and the stories that have been established with the prior two Deadpools, it could have been terrible and still made $500 million. The audience was going to see it no matter what.
Yeah.
It seems like it was one of those where like everybody went to go see it, and then if it's bad, that people were like, oh, well, it wasn't that great, but everyone still went to go see it. That's what it feels like. But then because it was good, it was a smashing hit.
I will say they did. While the language is for sure still very much strongly R. They reeled in some of the other aspects of
they did.
Previous Deadpool
some of the comedy.
Movies. Or I was gonna say, or even like the like explicit scene. There's none of that in Deadpool and Wolverine, other than the language.
The language.
There's the language.
That's where I think they may push. Boundary.
Because it does feel like they've for sure with Andor have pushed up closer to that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see when Andor season 2 comes out. What the feel is if
Tony, I can see Tony Gilroy slipping in some
if they push it a little bit,
use some stronger language into the next one.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, I could just see him doing it, but just maybe because he prides himself on saying he's not a big Star Wars fan.
He's just
he's like, I just make the show. It just happens to be in Star Wars. I'm like, okay, and
Darth,
like almost is like, you will not consider me part of Star Wars, but also will make the best Star Wars you can imagine.
But do the best one.
But I'm with you. I hope not.
Darth says, of all these announced films, the Levy Project may turn out to be rated R, especially if this is a standalone film outside of the Skywalker saga.
Skywalker saga could nothing to do with that.
No.
None of the legacy characters could ever go.
No. It would have
to be even the movies
it would have to be a one-off.
Even the movies that we love, and I love Rian Johnson's director. There's some Last Jedi language that I was like, oh, that was unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah.
That it actually stands out to me and like in the moment makes me feel like it takes me out of it for a second.
Yeah.
Of like, where I'm like, oh yeah, no, that felt a little unnecessary.
Right.
Like, it is. Again, I'm certainly not pushing for more of that content, and I just kind of always. It's hard because I get that they're running it. They're running a business. They're trying to do what's the most appealing. But for me as a fan, I'm always like, if you want to go watch those stories, because I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, I thought it was hilarious and super entertaining. I just like that that's not in Star Wars. I'm not against there being those types of movies out there, and I will go see them because I think they're great. I just like it doesn't need to be in Star Wars. To me, it feels like that's not at the heart of Star Wars. That's not in its DNA. That it might feel that I'm
not.
like I would rather that stay separate. But
I agree. I do want to get to before we wrap. I do want to discuss some of the other news that's been coming out this week. The reports of Natalie Portman returning to Star Wars for Ahsoka season 2. There's been some rumors going around that Dave Filoni has been in talks with Natalie Portman about joining Ahsoka season 2.
Possibly alongside Hayden and Ewan, from what the most other
well,
reports,
Hayden,
the rumors from last week was that
we
Ewan
can pretty confidently assume Hayden will be back because he smashed. He was a huge hit in the first one.
Yep.
He's a huge part of Ahsoka's story relating to the world between worlds. Ahsoka will forever be tied to Anakin. I feel like no matter what project she's in, as long as Hayden Christensen is willing, he'll be involved in whatever Ahsoka is doing because of the impact of the story. But Ewan too, and Natalie Portman, and so I think from a narrative standpoint, it would be not just great from a fan base, but I think from a narrative standpoint, it makes total sense. In fact, and we talked about this before, it actually feels like Lucasfilm has gone the opposite direction with Natalie Portman.
I mean, gone out of its way to
not mention Padme.
It was
like
jarring in Obi-Wan that she was not mentioned.
We talked about it. It was like, why are you calling her like your mother and you're this and that? Like, why would you not just say Padme? Just say the name.
The name, you coward. Say her name.
It's not like you need to. It's not like it's not like you need to sign a check for Natalie Portman, so they're avoiding it just by saying the character's name. It's like just say the name. So I thought I remember feeling when watching that like, that seemed like intentional, like they were avoiding saying Padme.
Yeah.
But it's exciting. I like the idea. I've been wanting that for some time, and from a narrative standpoint, it makes sense because the tie to Anakin, and for those who've seen Clone Wars and Rebels, know that Padme was a huge part of Ahsoka's character.
Yep.
They had a very strong relationship. They even showed in Tales of the Jedi. Ahsoka was at Padme's funeral, so there's a lot there. And if they continue to dive deeper into the vastness of the Force and the world between worlds, it only makes sense that these characters, these flashbacks of the Clone Wars, these things will come up. And so I'm excited. I think it's phenomenal, and I hope it happens. But
yeah, I've been hoping for her to get. I like all these prequel actors.
Well, and with her return,
the fact that we had Ahmed Best come back.
Yeah.
I love how they did that.
We haven't had Natalie Portman yet. Like, that
sense.
feels like I kind of want everyone that went through.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think there's some work to do before, unfortunately, before Jake Lloyd would ever make an appearance or something like that. But
he could do it.
I don't know.
I would love to see. Yeah, I would love to see anyone who had to go through the hard time to be like, just so you know, like, I know Hayden's talked about it, like him coming out. Like the celebration in the place going nuts nowadays. He's like,
him.
Man, people appreciate me.
That's right.
Like
I
20
think
years ago, this was not the response.
I think it would be great for Jake Lloyd to be involved.
I think
it's a matter of time. And I think of all the people to do it, it would be Filoni and Favreau.
For sure. I think they
would.
With
them at the helm right now, he may have already been called.
That's what they did for Ahmed Best. They didn't have to do that. They gave him even a different character that they gave him. Let's put our arms around you and bring you into the Star Wars.
Give you a great scene.
Be a Jedi.
I don't know now because he was younger. He's been removed from acting for so long, and even when he was acting, he was younger.
Yeah.
I don't see it being as big of a role maybe as Ahmed Best did when he returned as like an actual more on-screen character there.
Yeah.
But I could totally see them having him in there as a role, almost like Urkel. Like, didn't have a lot of lines, but he was there and people knew his name and knew his character.
He was great.
He was in a bunch of scenes. Like, I could see that being something they did for him. And with Favreau Filoni, he may have already been called. I don't know. But I do think it's only a matter of time. I think that'd be great, and I would love to see, similar to Hayden Christensen's response from the fan base of people who grew up with the prequels now,
of course,
experiencing Star Wars Celebration, to basically embrace Jake Lloyd, and kind of wrap their arms around him and show him that the people that grew up with his movies, and were really excited about his character, and so.
And I would let him know that I also like Jingle All the Way.
Jingle
True.
All the Way. Not
True.
Put the cookie down.
Not his only.
It's one of the best.
True.
Any
Cookie
movie that
down.
had Phil Hartman in it, I'm a fan. Phil Hartman is a sleazy next door neighbor who's constantly
is perfect.
Constantly getting in the way of Arnold's relationship with is it Rita Wilson? Is the mom in that? I think so. It's just great. The one other Star Wars news headline from this week.
Oh.
StarWars.com.
Yeah, Star Wars.
StarWars.com. Have another drink.
Star Wars.
Marvel. Here's the headline on StarWars.com. Marvel's.
Oh, I saw this.
Marvel's Star Wars launches into the New Republic era after Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. Exclusive reveal. So this is the Marvel line of the comics, their main story, the main line.
Yeah.
Marvel Star Wars. I'll just read this little
crossover.
I think I did read.
Marvel Star Wars,
this.
the flagship comic that expands our understanding of the original trilogy, is relaunching this May with a new series of stories that take place after the events of Return of the Jedi. So this is some exciting new Han Solo, Luke, Leia.
Yeah.
It's the dawn of the New Republic, and as the dust settles after the Battle of Jakku, our rebel heroes Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia Organa, and Han Solo find themselves forging a new order as pirates and thieves swarm to fill the power vacuum left behind by the fallen Empire. And then it goes in to talk a little bit about it. And the last thing, quote, is by the creators of it. Now that we've put the period at the end of the Galactic Civil War with the Battle of Jakku, we can speed ahead into a new uncharted era with some new galactic threats, foes, and mysteries for our beloved heroes to grapple with, blending the familiar with the new and shocking. Adds Sakura, the creator of these stories, will be packed with action and the character moments Star Wars fans have come to expect, featuring twists on the galaxy and landscape that we know, with an eye toward making sure people can jump in easily. And with any issue, we can't wait. So again, I haven't been updated on any of the comic stuff. I read some of the comic stuff years ago. I haven't read them in a long time.
Yeah.
But anything that's more that gets into like that fun, because it takes me back to the late '90s, like the Thrawn era novels, the Heir to the Empire stuff. Of like, I want to get into Post Return of the Jedi. What is Leia
What's
up to?
going on?
What is Han up to? What is Luke up to?
How are they rebuilding?
It also in this article specifically mentions Mon Mothma having a big role in it, and I just love, I love that era.
Me too.
So it's
that's great.
It's exciting. It's also known as the basically the Favreau-Filoni era.
Yeah, it is. It's the Mandoverse.
Done a lot of the
Mandoverse. Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is.
So I like the. It is funny though. On StarWars.com, I go to their headline and it's about a new Marvel line. But the biggest Star Wars news that Lucasfilm and StarWars.com is not even addressing or acknowledging at all is Sean Levy, Ryan Gosling, Natalie Portman potentially coming back,
right?
Ewan and Hayden potentially coming back. But last note I know as we're wrapping, do we think at Celebration, the next Celebration now with the timing of this, if the deal is done, I would almost have to assume.
When is Celebration?
Is it May? April? Maybe it's April.
Is it earlier?
That they would announce.
Would they officially finally have Sean Levy come out and just? I mean, again, they don't need to do.
They're filming in the fall. They will.
They don't need to do a big.
If they're actually filming in the fall, they will.
They don't need to do another.
At that point, it's lit. It's greenlit.
I get like we don't need to do another. Here's your next 3 directors, and then for 4 years or 3 years, none of them haven't done anything
what
about it.
happened with you?
They tried to go.
They said here's your next 3 directors, and actually said here's our directors that have been confirmed. Here's even what their stories a little bit.
Here's every time
about. Boom, boom, boom.
Here's every time.
And also, Favreau, who's not even out here, is going to do a full movie before any of these.
Before this happens,
Favreau did, but
I think
because Sean
they
Levy
will.
is
if it's happening,
is
they
hot
will
right now that they will, and it seems to be actually happening and happening soon.
They may even have Gosling there too. I don't know.
That would be.
If it's actually happening, and
no, he's a little big.
True.
We'll see.
If it's actually happening,
Did they ever get Jude Law to any of those? I don't think they ever did.
I don't think so, because
at
the time,
it's just one of those. It's just the timing of it.
Yeah,
it was
I think
2 years off,
and it felt like again, Skeleton Crew was the last. It felt like if you were doing Star Wars Disney Plus Phase 1,
right.
It was the last of that initial announced shows. Like
it was the
WALL-E.
Wall-E.
Skeleton Crew has been years in the making.
It was the Wall-E of the
yes,
Pixar meeting,
exactly.
the last one.
It was the last one before the next one. So
right.
I don't know. Again, it's
we'll see.
It's exciting to think about. It's exciting to think of. Again, it's not that I need a bunch of. I mean, we've gone through it a bunch. Like
gimme, I need.
I love What About Bob?
Awesome.
But we've talked about there being a ton of Star Wars movies in development or potentially in development. I heard someone talking about the story and going, "Oh yeah," and then we also still have the Star Wars the Simon Kinberg trilogy.
That's right.
I'm like,
oh my gosh!
They have an actual trilogy that's supposed to be coming.
I'm waiting.
I'm not sure.
I'm waiting for my trilogy.
Oh, honestly,
I'm
my
waiting.
stand-up,
I don't know
I'll
what's
take whatever I can get at this point.
I'll tell you what. I'm waiting for a trailer.
Boy, I think
If
it's
there's not a trailer, I'm not
Disney
convinced.
Disney Plus, mate. I'll take it.
Disney Plus.
Take it back, mate.
If there's not a
It's all
trailer, I'm not getting my hopes up. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, there are a lot of
this is
exciting things, a lot of news with Natalie Portman. Again, just rumors, nothing confirmed. But even without that, Ahsoka season 2 around the corner, Andor around the corner, season 2,
Literally.
and
Corner.
It's right there.
Andor.
right around.
Boom. He's right
And
there.
and Gosling and Star Wars. What is going on? We're diving into it all.
A
I'm
Gosling
excited.
and a Gander.
And
Take
again,
a gander at the God. Take
Yeah.
a gander at the Gosling.
Gander at the Gosling.
The Gosling,
Goose
gandering, and the gooses.
It's exciting.
But
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
anything else you guys got?
I don't know, we can tell a joke or something, or
Yeah, tell a joke.
Anything
Thanks for
else we
tuning
got?
in. If you made it this far, don't forget
Actually
to
had one.
like the video. Do it. Like it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and smash the notification bell. We'll catch you guys in the next one. And as always, may the Force be with you.
I won't protect you, Padme. Only Ahsoka season 2 can do that. All right, only my new powers can do that.
More.
Make things the way you want them to be.
More.
There's this thing called World Between Worlds. What's up, Anaheim? That's Anakin's it's Anaheim.
Hello, Anaheim.
Oh,
Mannequin.
Anaheim, hello, Star Wars.
Skywalker.
Oh, Mannequin Skywalker.
Oh man.
I love it. Love it. I like Star Wars. I won't be afraid
And
to say it.
That was the last thing they heard. I like Star Wars. I threw Trump dancing on there, and then Mike says, I like Star Wars, and that was it. Young man. Is the volume okay on it? I like Star Wars. You got anything else to say?
Hello, we're back. This is great. We're still recording, and so
I guess I should do some voice.